Hello everyone! For those of you that subscribe to the channel, you know it's been a while since I've posted, but we're finally back. Hopefully you all have been enjoying some outside fly time with your quads or having lots of time doing research for your first quad. But in this video today, we're taking a look at the CaddxFPV GoFilm 20. And in this particular video, I'm going to have several slow flight samples and a faster, more my natural style of samples. To my knowledge, the GoFilm 20 only comes with the CaddxFPV Walksnail video system. In this particular case, it has the Moonlight kit. So we have 4K recording on the VTX, which is accessible right there, if you can see the SD card slot there. And we have the associated camera. Note this little hood. We're going to see this little hood a few times in the video. We've got 1303 6000 kV motors on GymFan tri-bladed 2-inch props. Yeah, we'll also see why this prop is missing a blade. The flight controller, which we're looking at the USB port there, does have ExpressLRS built into it. It is on a UART, so it is Wi-Fi updatable, or in general updatable. It is an F405 and it is a 20 amp all-in-one flight controller. I should mention that the Walksnail kit does come with an ND8 filter. The top carbon fiber plate looks to be just about 3 millimeters thick, and that's the only carbon fiber because on the bottom is plastic. And motor post to motor post, it looks to be somewhere between 94 and 95 millimeters. The GoFilm 20 weighs just over 118 grams. I used a few different sizes of batteries to get slow cinematic sort of flight times, which we'll discuss during the flight videos. With the 850 milliamp GNB 4S battery, we get a little over 205 grams. With the red labeled GNB 720 4S battery, we get, I would call that 187.5 grams. With the flower print GNB 650 4S, we get 187 and about a half grams as well. So that's interesting. A 720 and a 650 weigh just about the same. And with the 660 4S yellow labeled GNB, we get 181 3/4 grams. Note there's no mount for an external HD camera. I wouldn't suggest trying to use a full GoPro with its battery and everything. You could get away with a naked GoPro, but you're going to need to come up with kind of a DIY sort of mounting solution, maybe a 3D print. As mentioned, it does come with a lens protector ND filter, however you want to see this, a USB cable, a quick start guide in 2 languages. One I believe is Chinese, and this one that we're looking at is English, and nothing else, not even extra props. But this was sent to me by the manufacturer so early, I suggest looking at the product pages, and when this product page is available, I will link it down in the video description. Check. I would presume they're going to send maybe another battery strap, some stickers, some extra props, maybe a few other little associated things that you might need if you were to purchase this quad. Okay, so we're going to look at a few different flights here, but I do need to note that this is the DVR footage that we're looking at, so it's not the on VTX recording, which can record up to 4K. If you're not familiar with the Moonlight, it has a bunch of different camera features, and we're going to get more into that a little bit, but there are a number of different reviews, including this channel with Moonlight reviews. But if you're looking at the screen, the smaller text on the screen, those are the native Betaflight OSD elements, but you don't get that in your recording. There are at least 2 tools that I'm aware of to where you take the SRT data, which you do get off the goggle recording, and then you integrate that into the video. And I've done that here because I think it's important for you to see all the statistical information that Betaflight provides us when in flight. Also in the bottom right hand corner, the larger font, that is from me video editing. That notes, in this particular case, the temperature and the wind. 4 miles an hour from my neck of the woods is really, really low, and you can probably tell by the sunlight, the sun is relatively low, and this is an after work flight. Yes, I have a day job if you aren't aware of that. As we go forward with other flights, in that bottom right hand corner, you'll note that it will have not only the degrees, but the wind miles. It's in miles per hour because I'm American. And in one flight, you'll note that it shows the 850 milliamp battery. I used the 850 milliamp battery a few times, but I found, for me and my comfort level, I found the 650 worked better, especially because, I like to ride along the fence line so often, and when you have a little bit of wind come up and kind of shove you closer to your fence or your object, that with the lower weight battery, I can maneuver a little bit easier and not be so choppy. So I tended to use the 650 milliamp battery the most, by far, actually. I should report the flight times on this. Let me look at my notes here. Hopefully I can read this. 850 milliamp 4S battery, the GNB that I weighed. I got about 7 minutes of flight. On the 650 on the slower flight, I get about 5 minutes, or excuse me, I get about 6 minutes. 5 minutes and 55 seconds is what this flight is. But on average, over the course of all the slower flights I took on the 650, about 6 minutes. A few times I got over 6 minutes, a few times not so much. Faster, we only get a little over 3 minutes, but you'll get to see that here in a minute. Inside on the 650, I got 445, which is kind of interesting that I got less flight time inside, but inside is tighter, so you have more turns, so you're using more of your battery capacity to spin motors up and down as you make more and more turns. You have less longer passes as I do outside. For the life of me, I cannot find the flights where I flew the 720s and the 660s. I know I used those. One thing you should know about battery labels is the C rating on the batteries. That's marketing mumbo jumbo. You can use them to compare the same style of battery within the same brand, but if you're comparing between brands, it won't make any sense. Like I already weighed the 720 and it was just about dead on with the 650, and I found on the 720, this is just from my recollection because I don't have it written on my notes, that the 720 gave me the same sort of flight time that the 650 did. And I liked how the 650 held its voltage better through the end of the battery, so I tended to use that one a lot more. So we're about halfway through this flight. Let's go ahead and move into some other samples that I've prepared. Okay, this is an overcast or cloudy day. You can see down there at the bottom, 81 degrees, 13 miles an hour on the flight, but it feels like less. That's something else I tend to note in my notes. So I've included it here on the screen. Sometimes where I'm comparing that feel by where I'm sitting, and I'm using this so you can see it in cloudy footage, and you can also see it when, well, yeah.
Oh no.
See, I'm well above the house here, and we're gonna fall out of this tree after I use turtle mode and regular arming mode to kind of twist it off of the branch that it's stuck on. So you've seen that little hood has come down on the view, and my camera angle is actually negative camera angle. You can see I back up once I get it up out of the air. So I wanted to show you that. I do have more crashes that I'm going to show you at the very end of the flight footage. I had one particular flight where it was kind of windy out, and I was doing close proximity, so I wang a lot of the furniture outside, so I kind of bump, and it's a little bit of proof of concept about the durability, which I was impressed with this quad.
Negative degree camera tilt, I believe.
Here we have a different day. Again, 69 degrees, 17 miles an hour. I don't know why I'm saying that. Everyone can read that on screen. Do note the 850 milliamp battery. I didn't think it flew worse or better. I'm sure there are circumstances where a heavier battery is going to come to play, maybe in wind, where you don't have to worry about the proximity. Like I like to fly along the fence line, as I said previously. Again, I've used a Walksnail tool. It's not from Walksnail. It's just available, I think, on GitHub. It's privately made, but it's free, that you can use to integrate into your video if you want to. Otherwise, you would just play the video and you wouldn't have the text on screen. But this is not the 4K on VTX recording. This is the goggle video. That's how you synchronize the goggle video that it records using that Walksnail Betaflight OSD tool, and you get all this information, and it's accurate. But you can see 17 miles an hour, it does impact the flight, as it's going to across the board with all these different quads. You can see I left a bucket out. You know, these flights have come across several weeks because this product has been pushed back for a while, and so I kept just flying it around. You can see we're already at 5 minutes of flight time on this particular day, but I wanted to show you some footage in relatively high winds, and while you can do it, I wouldn't advise it if you want smooth video. Little inside flight. This is the 4K video recording, and you'll notice the LED lights, which we have several different kinds in the house, do cause some flashing. I did not find that I could have one setting in the camera that took care of that, so then I ended up rolling back the camera to the default settings. I didn't go extensively into that, so I don't know what setting you would necessarily need to change. I know that the LEDs run at the different refresh frequency or hertz, as do most light bulbs. And so in my particular case, it could be challenging because I could have several different ones that you'll see it when we go downstairs, that I have additional LED lights down there. But I also wanted to kind of show an inside flight, because really with this type of quad, if you're doing some sort of filming, you might be looking at this as something that you can use to film inside. And while I don't go upstairs often, because usually the house is occupied with people up here, yeah, I went up there today. Well, I shouldn't say usually. Sometimes it's occupied with people up there. Get to see the bathroom, which I remodeled about, it's getting close to 10 years. We got a two-headed shower and a chandelier over a clawfoot tub with a TV. The women in my life, which I'm outnumbered 3 to 1, do spend a lot of time in that tub, soaking up the chandelier and the TV. Go down the hallway to our older 2 bedrooms, but the one that we're going into now, he's off at college, so we gave his bunk beds away. He was getting a little too big for him anyways, to a young family. And then across the hall is his oldest sister, and our youngest does not have her door open, so I did not go up there. But this sort of flight kind of gives you an idea if you want to do some sort of filming of the quality that you might be able to get. Of course, 2-inch is much more manageable inside than, say, a larger quad. Of course, you could do it with larger quads. We've seen all sorts of people do inside flights with larger quads on YouTube, but 2-inch, smaller, 95 millimeter motor post gives you more margin for error. And if you need to get through a tight gap, that might be just the fix. Just a little flight sample there. It's already ended. We're going for our outside flight. You can see text, which it looks like I have made the text a little bit of an odd shadow color. Sorry about that. 61 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 miles per hour, but it felt like more. But got to get out and stretch my legs, do the native flying. So we're going to do what I typically do, at least on this channel. I do fly in the backyard. Not exclusively 100%, but almost exclusively. When I go on trips and family vacations, I usually don't take too many quads, and if I do, I usually just fly them inside of wherever we're staying. But that punch out that you saw me do, you might want to go back and look at that. There's a little bit of a side-to-side wobble. We've seen that before in other quads of this type. Oftentimes, increasing the thrust linearization within Betaflight will help that or solve that completely. I had one that did it pretty bad, and I raised the thrust linearization to 100%, which helped a lot. So you might need to tweak that, but for reviews, I don't make those sorts of changes. I fly them as they come to me. Only thing I do is I move the switch modes, or the modes, to the switches I like to use on my radio, and I put the OSD elements that I've been using on this channel for a very long time in the area that those that come and watch the channel would expect to see them, so it makes for easy, repeated viewing. Flying in the same space probably also helps. But this is what I like to do the most. But it's not how the quad is designed to fly, so it's I just like to test things out. I like to have fun. I'll get questions, which you'll see here in a minute, about can it power loop? Yeah, pretty much anything can power loop. It all just depends upon how easy it is or where your skill set or your muscle memory is at. So when it comes to doing tricks, when it comes down to the power to weight ratio or the thrust, that's where the big portion of can it do something and can you make it do something. It gets easier if you have more overhead or more thrust than you do weight, but in this particular case, in these kinds of quads, they tend to weigh more than the unprop protected variants. Of course, this is 2-inch and 2S, so you don't have a huge battery, you don't have a huge prop, but you do have a pretty good sized battery. Again, 650 milliamp battery on this flight as well. But we're going to watch the whole flight, and the flight will come in at over 3 minutes, as I stated previously. I thought outside of that little waggle we saw when we do the punch ups and then we get the nose down on 0 throttle, it handled things pretty well. On some of these other moves, you may notice I come in a little bit flat when I'm doing like maybe a power loop type of move, or I'm going in recovery from a vertical position. It didn't handle that outstanding, but it handled it pretty decent considering the weight and the prop size. Of course, when you get the technique down, it will come out of those situations real smooth. Hopefully, I've given you enough samples to where you can kind of see both, where it comes out of those nose down maneuvers pretty well without much prop wash versus coming in what I oftentimes say is just flat. So not good technique, and how it handles that as well, because those are all important things. When you're purchasing something, you need to know as much as I can provide flight information. I always think the flights are probably the most valuable content that I can bring. Okay, coming in for a landing here. We're almost going to hit 3.5 volts, so we'll hold for that to rise back up.
Yay! Boom shakala.
Okay, this is that flight I was talking about earlier where I just, for whatever reason, it was relatively windy, and I was just doing some close proximity, and I'm hitting things. I should note, for those that aren't familiar, the flight audio, the external audio is not recorded on the Walksnail VTX, the Moonlight. It's not recorded on the quad or the DVR on the goggles. That is an external camera that I bring into the video edit so you can hear the quad. So don't expect your flight recordings to have that sound, because it won't, unless you do the same thing I did, which was to have a secondary camera. I position that camera right near where I'm sitting. It's kind of what I would say the pilot's ears of the video. But I hit a number of the different metal pieces of furniture out here, and eventually down at the end, we're going to actually see what caused the one prop to lose one of its blades, and then something interesting happens when you get the prop blade missing and you have another crash where I think pretty much all my props are either slightly damaged or maybe somewhat majorly damaged, I guess you would say. When a prop blade is missing, it's really no longer usable. But as you can see, you could do close proximity with this. This is at my native camera angle for faster flight. It's just a matter of, is that something you like to do? Is that something you're ready to handle if you just started out flying? But I wanted to show you this because I like to include at least some portion of crashes so you get an idea. Well, one, the quad can be crashed and it shouldn't die. Sometimes there are really bad crashes and something dies, or it's a really light crash and something dies. But in my particular case, I hit several things on just one flight, and everything continued to work except for the broken blade on the prop. It is in the lawn somewhere here eventually. But you can see we've had another crash, and yeah, the hood's down on the camera lens. So I think I have one final crash here before... Yeah, fly away. So obviously this hood, that kept coming down. Pretty much every time I crashed, this would come down into view. Well, not pretty much every time. I think in that last section I had 5 crashes, and it came down in 2 of them, right? Yeah, about 2 of them. But if you look right in here, you can see where the camera's, I guess you would call that soft mounting. There's a 3D print in there, and you can get a hex driver right in there to loosen those 2 screws in the camera so you can change camera angle. It's a little bit tedious because you've also got to hold this canopy to keep it out of your lens view. And of course, if you have it powered on, you can do that and make sure that you keep this out of view better. But your VTX is going to heat up. These HD VTXs, on all of them, they get very, very hot. So it's sensitive to the touch. And I would also encourage you, if you do any work on your desk with a quad, any micro quad now, have a little fan and blow some air on that. That will keep it from overheating as well as potentially self-damaging. So a little fan like this, I picked this up on a trip one time from a gas station. I don't know, probably paid more than I should have. I'm sure you can get something like this off of Amazon or somewhere for $7 or $10. We've got a T-mount style antenna in the back, and that is also on another print. And then we've got our video transmitter antennas. This particular one from the far side, it goes over here. That's pretty taut. So don't try to shove that up. If anything, you might want to shove that down a little bit so that it's got a little bit of give in this wire. This one's fine, but this one over here, this far side, hopefully I'm not covering it up with my fat fingers, that one's pretty taut. So something to keep track of. That could tear free if you have some tumble through a tree sort of accident. As you can see, I lost this prop, and you can see all my props have nicks in them and bent up, and the pitch is probably changed. So I would need some fresh props, but my kit didn't come with any. I do have these on stock and on hand, but I didn't want to swap out props. I just wanted to continue to fly it, but I couldn't in theory because my review sample didn't come with extra props. But again, check the link, which I'll have down in the video description whenever it goes live. At this moment, I don't know how much it's going to cost either, so that's another information bit I can't include in this video. I expect it to be probably $450. Wouldn't that be about the going rate for an HD 2-inch 2S or 4S quad these days? I could be off. It's been a while since I've made a video. We also have feet down here that we land on, so that does help to protect our screws from taking any sort of damage when we go sliding across cement. You can see all my grass stains. They do have a little bit of a compartment here where the camera cable stays in. I didn't have any troubles with that. You can see this one, hopefully, if I get a good angle on it. This did wear down just in the short time I have it. It's kind of gnarled over a little bit, and I don't think I had hard landings in my normal spot, but I had those crashes that I had more than what I showed you, but I had, at the very least, that I can proof concept video that I had at least those crashes. But otherwise it lived up to, you know, all of my flights and all of my crashes. And if you saw my roundup of the 2-inch Cinewhoops, I would rate this relatively high as far as the durability scale. um, I think I had like 6 or 7, maybe it was as many as 8 in that roundup. I would put this amongst the top 3 as far as durability. I didn't note it in the quick specs, but we have a texturized battery mat here. That's good. And these screws, if you look at them closely, those are countersunk into that carbon fiber. I presume this is carbon fiber. I know if you look at it, it doesn't look traditional, but those top layers of carbon fiber can have any pattern you want. We see carbon fiber that's blue, silver, red. So the proof of concept that, yeah, the carbon fiber layers that we can see don't really matter as far as telling us something about the underneath layers. But this looks nice at the very least, and I don't think it's flexible by any stretch. I think it's actually, you can see I can get this one to bend a little bit. It's my stronger hand. I'm right-handed. I get the left one to bend too, but I'm putting some pretty good pressure on this. I think that's carbon fiber that's pretty dadgum stiff. And you're not likely to hit the carbon fiber very often because we have our battery up here. So you would have to go like sideways or vertically into something that would hit an arm to really test that durability. This is the part that's going to be taking most of our bashing and crashing. And it's pretty rigid, but you can see it still gives. Obviously, it gives enough to where you can break a prop off of the propeller. So, you know, it gets in there probably farther than I'm pushing in order to accomplish that, don't you think? I guess if you got it just right, it only has to push it in so far if it happens to catch that prop and snap it off. But overall, I was pretty impressed with the durability. We have 2 screw holes right here that is, I guess, potential that maybe Caddx has plans to come out with a third-party HD camera mount. If you were to want to use something like that, you're probably going to need to keep it right out here over to the typical FPV camera. I wouldn't suggest, again, planning on using a 2-inch micro of any sort with a full-size GoPro with a battery included. It's going to fly for a very short time with a giant battery, and it's not going to fly very agile at all. I'm even talking slow flights. It's just, you're weighing it down with that big old heavy GoPro. So you're talking naked GoPro is viable, or something like the Insta360 Go cameras. Those would also be viable. We have the Caddx Peanut, which they sell. So these holes give you an opportunity to design and print a mount, or maybe CaddxFPV has one coming out. We also have these 3D prints here that provide us a little bit of camera protection. You can tell that those little, let's call them horns, stick out past the camera, even at the angle I have, except for this bottom lip, which that should be protected here by the bottom, what do we call that? Housing? Yeah, we'll say housing. This top piece, I just don't know that this is going to be providing us any sort of durability or camera protection. I suspect it's just going to get moved out of the way. Obviously, I had some crashes, but I don't think any of those were camera head on. I think those were on the sides. And, you know, when I would hit the ground, this would get pushed down over the lens of the camera, and then we would see it in the goggles. But I just don't think this is going to provide you much camera protection. Do note, if you want to raise the camera angle, back here we don't have a lot of space before we're going to start hitting either the screw or the carbon fiber. So if you wanted something like this and you wanted extreme camera angle, probably going to be removing this anyways. With the 850 battery and this particular strap, which is the only strap I got, well, let me just put it on here so I can show you. Okay, I've got the battery threaded through here, and you can tell this is the part right up here where the battery, the other part side of the battery strap will actually grab. So you really have to hunker this down and pull on it for all you're worth just to get about this much of the battery and the battery strap that actually adheres together. So this doesn't hold a lot of strength when it comes to holding this size of battery on the quad. At least the strap does. Hopefully there's a secondary strap they include with the retail kits that you can then change out the battery strap if you happen to want to fly a big 850 battery, which again gets you about 7 minutes of slow cinematic sort of flight style. So that is the GoFilm 20. Again, I don't know its cost or its price that it's going to be. I don't ask for that information from the manufacturer. They did send this for review, but they haven't seen this video. No manufacturer gets any favors from me. I have a job. I'm not beholden to manufacturers. That is not a dig on anyone else. That is just how I have always run this channel. I've always had a job. Doing product reviews and having a YouTube channel, it just kind of self-sustains because I always wanted to make this a hobby where I was free to have fun. I didn't have to worry about anything. I enjoy trying new products. I enjoy tinkering. So the manufacturers, no agreement between me and them by any stretch, but I think this will only be Walksnail only, so you'll need a set of goggles. I was using the V1 goggles for Walksnail Avatar. My goggles X are giving me fits, so I think they're actually going to be needing a repair, unfortunately. But it could come in analog, but I don't suspect it's going to come in any other video system. Just analog and Walksnail, I think, are the only two, because Caddx makes Walksnail, so why would they do anything other than Walksnail? And it's a cinematic sort of quad, so really HD makes the most sense to me. But let me know what you think. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section down below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.